Welcome to this episode of Mercy Can't Stop Her, the podcast where we share the stories of women's resilience through chaos, crisis, and the challenges of life. I am your host, Judith Kambia Obatusa, JKO. On this episode, we'll be going back into our season 1 to bring up Donna Fairhurst. She is a proponent of a concept called radical forgiveness. And in our conversations about domestic violence and self-care and what that means for us, I believe that this has some nuggets of wisdom that we can all glean from. How do we become radical forgivers? Let's listen to Donna's story and learn.
Thank you so much for having me, Judith. It's a blessing to be here with you today.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Donna refers to herself as a proud graduate and endless student of the University of Life on planet Earth. She actually has a PhD, and she hasn't stopped learning in this University of Life. Donna has studied with many teachers, including an Egyptian Coptic priest, a Jesuit priest, a Buddhist nun, an imam, and not only has she studied under these teachers, she has also studied under the experiences of life. Donna is a survivor. She's a survivor of near blindness, polio, cancer, 3 near-death experiences. She's a survivor of relationships that haven't worked out. She's a triumphant survivor. Donna, I'm just going to go into those things we talked about: near blindness, polio, cancer, near-death experiences. Can you just give us a little snippet, because this time is too short for you to go into everything, about some of these experiences that have made you this intuitive and empathetic life coach that you are today?
Oh, Judith, well, I've been in this planet 70 plus years, and I've had a lot of challenges, a lot of joys, a lot of pain, and a lot of triumphs. And I've come to learn in this PhD journey of life that we're all on it. There's no escaping the challenges, and challenges that we face, big or small, are divinely guided and sent to us and held in the arms of our angels around us to bring us to a fuller understanding of the fullness of our soul and how we are to connect and share that. That's why I was divinely guided to name my company Full, Full Solutions. And quite literally, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Some things will lay you down, take you down. There is always a way to lift yourself up. And sometimes that's leaning into prayer. Sometimes that's leaning into guidance from elders. Sometimes that's seeking solutions from a professional or a counselor. I was born legally blind. All I could see was color and things very up close to me. So I learned to see life through the lens of color, and everyone showed up to me as a variety of colors that were expressed in their energy field. And I learned that when their moods changed or their belief systems changed, their colors changed. So somebody who would go from a vibrant, connected, earthy red, and it would go real dark, I would know would be angry. Somebody who had this beautiful heart space that was generally a lovely deep emerald green with pink in the center would suddenly go to this yellow limey color. And I knew that they were experiencing jealousy. I never questioned how I knew these things. I didn't even really have names for them, but it was quite disconcerting for my parents. And at one point in my not even my preteens, they took me to a child psychiatrist to have me hypnotized and counseled so as to not remember my dreams and my psychic and empathic impressions. So it was hard. and I shut down and I literally went underground. I went into the closet, so to speak. I mean, that wasn't a saying in my childhood. It is now. And I didn't come out of it. I'd peek out. I'd take little forays out and I would be frightened again and I would go back in. So I just lived my life. And during that life, I had polio, I had cancer, I went through 2 divorces. I'm in my 3rd marriage, and God, thank you, Lord, has sent me my soulmate and the deepest, best companion I could ever imagine when I stopped looking and I leaned into myself, leaned into my soul and my strength, and declared to the Lord, oh God, I don't need a man. I don't want another pair of socks under my bed for the rest of my life. And God laughed and shrugged and said, we'll see, and sent me Frank. And frankly, he's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I am so in love and so empowered with his partnership, his companionship, and his full understanding of who I am. And that is the one thing that I would make completely clear. You are who you declare yourself to be, and you will attract to you exactly what you say you are. So if you say, I don't even call myself a survivor anymore, I call myself a champion in the challenges of my life. CC, champion, challenge, they come together. And yeah.
This is so good. You are a champion, and you're not just a champion in the challenges of your life. You're a champion to us women who are privileged to have met you, women who have listened to you speak, women who have studied under you. You are a champion, and you're not just saying it, we are seeing it. So I'm just going to something that many women on this podcast have spoken about, the issue of relationship and how it impacted their lives. And you are one who has had, you're in your 3rd marriage. So the 1st, the 2nd, and then 3rd coming at not when you were a spring chicken, and it's so wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. But I want to just take you back, because you have so many experiences in life. But because that is something that many people have spoken about, I'm just going to ask you a few questions around that.
Absolutely.
So, regarding the marriages, the person that you were, that wasn't that even your family couldn't come to terms with the specialness of your person. How did it impact you in your relationships with these people, especially the men that you eventually married? How did that particular experience from childhood impact those other relationships, with the knowledge that you had about the difficulty your family had in understanding who you were?
Well, my parents were very different people. My mother was a what I would say a hugely educated. She had 2 degrees, one in nursing and one in education, and was an only child who was whose mother died very young. So she was a remote mother during my early childhood. And my father came from a large French Canadian family, 18 children surviving, and was Roman Catholic. So I have this really Baptist United, single child, single family mother, and then this French Canadian cowboy father from a huge French Canadian family. And the 2 of them were madly in love, but they really didn't know how to connect with what I would call calm. It was such a roller coaster my whole life in that relationship. And I recently decided that, love was like a jigsaw puzzle for me. And there were the 4 corners. You know how when you start one of those crazy, your grandmother gives you a 1,000-piece puzzle for Christmas or your birthday, and you got to do it because she's going to call and ask or come and see how much you've done. So, most people start with the 4 corners, find the corner pieces, get the outline, and then figure out what it's all about. And all the colors are somewhat the same. So it's like shooting in the dark for the right piece. And you're always trying to work to the center. And for me, the center was love. And what does love mean for me? And how am I supposed to experience it and to express it? And I realized early on that God divinely sent me, source, creator, whatever you want to call what you believe is, all that is, gave me these 4 pillars, these 4 corners of my puzzle. And the first one was my father. And what I learned from my father is you can love someone deeply without liking who they always are. And you might be able to learn to like them and love them, but that doesn't mean you can necessarily approve of, appreciate, or live with them. So from my father, I learned that I was strong enough to choose my own belief system and to do it with joy. I married someone very much like my father. The hunter, fisherman, outdoorsman. He was 6 years older than me, the boy next door. And somehow from the age of 9, I always knew I was going to marry him. And when I was 15, he said, you got another year and then I'm going to come back and then we're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend for 2 years. And then we're going to get married when you're 18. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And so did my parents to a degree. And so life circled round. I married him. And within 10 months, I realized that this man was abusive, that he was alcoholic like my father, that he had great anger inside of him for the losses in his own life. And it took me exactly a year and 2 months to say, I am out of here. Now, was there a lot of damage done and a lot of pain in that? There was. I didn't even tell my parents I left until I left, got a divorce, and then told them, because I knew if my parents found out that I was going to leave this man, they would make me work on the marriage and make me stay in the marriage. And I was not going to be in an abusive relationship. Even back then, 50 years ago, I knew that no woman deserves to be in or has to stay in an abusive relationship for the sake of anyone, not even her children. And in fact, that's the worst disservice you can do to your children, is to stay in an abusive relationship. And one of the things I had to work through with my mother many, many years later was that I had a hard time forgiving her for staying in a somewhat abusive relationship and not either working on stemming or stopping it or leaving it so that everyone was loved and safe. After I got my divorce, I went back to work on my education. I met another fellow. Of course, he was the exact opposite of my father and my first husband. He was quiet. He was sincere. He was gentle. He was the oldest of a large family. So he was a very much father figure. His mother had died, much like my mother, when he was quite young. And so he had this gentleness about him that I fell in love with. He still ended up to be a very quietly abusive and unavailable person. It wasn't necessarily that he was a bad father or a bad man. He just didn't get being whole or connected or faithful. And ultimately, he was unfaithful. After 23 years of marriage, we had a very messy, awful divorce. I can say with total honesty that I contributed to that because I stayed in the marriage for all the wrong reasons. 10 years past its past due date, because I thought that was the right thing to do for my children. It wasn't. After the divorce, my parents said, my children said, "Oh my God, what took you so long?" And they were teenagers, and you think that you're doing these things to save your children or to spare your children the pain or to get them through school or to get them to university or whatever the problem is that you think you're staying for. That's the wrong reason. The only reason to stay in a committed relationship with anyone is because it serves you both in the highest degree with the ultimate amount of love that you can give. And if you cannot give that love and bring that forgiveness to what is broken in the marriage and fix it, then it's not fixable. You've got to leave it. If you leave it, then you've got to leave it with the confidence that if you don't have what you need and don't understand how to get it, then you've got to seek help to find it. And I tell you, one thing I've learned is that help is always there. We just have to open our mind, forgive ourselves, forgive others, and get the help we need. From all of that, those two marriages led me, and the relationship with my father led me to really lean into myself and find out who I was and what I was about and what I would and would not accept as reality in my life, because we create our reality with our thoughts and with our ability to forgive ourselves, forgive others. I live from a place in my life now of radical forgiveness at all times, because it is the only way that you can bring all of the joy and the love and the abundance and the peace, regardless of what's going on in your life. Those things are accessible, even when it doesn't feel like you have it. When I got to that place where I was independent of the good opinion of anybody else, I met my husband. And at the age of 54, I found out what real, true, sustaining, committed love is. And it's
before you give us more, before you give us the juice of that part of the story, I can't wait. I just wanted to go back a little bit. So when you say the worst thing you can do, the worst disservice you can do to your children, you can give your children, is staying in an abusive relationship with their father or with anyone.
Yes.
Can you try and just unpack that for a minute?
Well, abuse that isn't dealt with and stopped has energetically, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, it is literally the energy of death in its lowest energy. See, death has a high energy and a low energy. The low energy of death is when we are dying slowly with our own actions that get stuck in our field. So if we are lying to ourselves or lying to someone else, when you stay in an abusive relationship that is not serving you or your children, you are lying to yourself. You are saying, I am not worthy of respect. I am not worthy of comfort. I am not worthy of love. And in that, you create a field of energy around you that says this soul feels unworthy. And then all that the universe, God, source, creator, the angels can do for you is to send you more of what you declare that you are. The strongest words that you say, the words that come out of your mouth, and the thoughts that you have, that you express, have the power to create your reality. You know, when back in the day when The Matrix came out, everybody thought, wow, that is just one crazy, wild sci-fi movie. But there was more truth than fiction in that. Every single letter of every single word that we speak and that we choose to hear has a power, a degree of energy that allows us to empower or disempower ourselves with our words. I like to use the example of the word surrender. You can see the word surrender as a very negative word. You're giving up your power. Or you can see surrender as a way of letting go of what's holding you back, which then empowers you. So I caution and guide and counsel to own your words and understand the power of them. And, you know, one of my favorite sayings is if you can't be empowering with your words for yourself and others, then keep your mouth shut, because it's just going to cause you or someone else more trouble. And that's when I lean into grace. And my prayer is, dear God, if I can't be love, then let me be grace. And if I can't be grace, then let me be quiet. And if I can't be quiet, then get me the hell out of here, because it's just not going to work.
I need that prayer. I'm I'm going to write it, put it on a plaque, and be looking at it. It's awesome. Thank you so much. And what you said for a listener who may have not taken the step, they know they've been in this abusive situation and they haven't taken the step, and they feel bad, or they took the step and they feel I should have taken it earlier. You said something really, really profound. The principle of radical forgiveness. That principle spans our relationships with ourselves and others. Could you just, I know you have a lot of writing and stuff around this radical forgiveness, and I just would love for you to give us, take that apart and really give details so somebody listening can understand what you mean when you say radically forgive yourself, radically forgive others. The principle, practice the principle of radical forgiveness.
Well, I really love what Martin Luther King said. He said that forgiveness doesn't mean putting a false label on an evil act. It means rather that the evil act no longer is a barrier to friendship with yourself or others. When in one of my near-death experiences, I learned that on the other side, there is no need for forgiveness because there is no judgment. When you die and you go to heaven, you are not going to be judged. I promise you this. You are going to be asked if you are able to forgive yourself and others who may have hurt you in your life. Judgment is a human construction. It is a social construction that has been written into our spiritual words as law. And what that is a signpost, not a law. We have the 10 Commandments, we have the Bible, we have the Quran, we have the Torah, we have all of these beautiful books that were written by man's interpretation of spiritual laws. But the 3 times I died and went over, what I found, the first time I went, I was explained about love. All there is on the other side is love. There is no expression, no feeling, no anything that is not love. And the next time I went back, I was told there is no judgment, because where there is judgment, there cannot be love. And therefore it follows that there is only love. So forgiveness is a gift that we give ourselves that empowers us and others to see ourselves through the eyes of Creator, God, Source, whatever that is. It's a result of suspending judgment, remorse, guilt, shame, blame, and fear to live in and from the center of our sacred soul self. I teach a principle called the calm principle, and to enact and be living from calm allows you to discover and lean into the sacred center of your being, which I call sacred soul self. And it's necessary to expand, to discover, to expand, and to live from sacred soul self, because in all of the evolutions of human consciousness, it affects all equally. We are in a quantum field generated from Source God that is nothing but love. And anything we experience that is not love is not created by God or Source, where we came and from whom we will return to. It is generated by the misconceptions, the disabling actions, the disabling thoughts, and the lack of love in our life. Now, obviously, we're going to run into people, places, and situations in our life that we can't love. Those are the challenges that we face in our life that allow us to learn to love ourselves. Sometimes it's necessary to love yourself first so that you can get out of the freight train that is happening in your life or around you and come at it from a new direction. So why is it necessary? It's necessary for the evolution of all levels of human consciousness, and thus all of us. And it affects us all individually and in the field, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically. True spiritual freedom and growth can only come by embracing forgiveness as an action plan. I have to forgive myself 100 times a day. It's necessary. I'll have a thought that's, I forgive that thought. I call back the energy. And that's as easy as it is. You have a negative thought, or you say something negative. My family is used to just snapping their finger now and saying, I call that back, God. Call back that energy, dispose of it, and then replace it with something that is positive. If we follow a path of forgiveness, one of the questions people ask me is, where does it lead us? Right? What leads us? So many people don't see the pathway to love is forgiveness. Lack of forgiveness is ego brain based. Even if it feels like our heart is breaking, in actual fact, the feeling of a broken heart for any reason is the first indication that radical forgiveness is required. So if you're in an abusive situation and, your man is beating on you and you're letting it happen, yet, you're not in any mood to forgive this man, right? You need to forgive yourself for putting yourself in that position in the first place. Once you can forgive yourself for being there and allowing that, and not allowing guilt, shame, blame, or fear to rule your life, then you can step back, create space, and find action steps to move yourself out of whatever that negative space is. Now, how do we start? That's another question. We embrace it. We embrace whatever the situation is. We embrace the lesson that it's there to teach us. And then we take action in the most positive manner we can. First for ourselves, because if we do it for ourselves, it follows that it will be in the highest good of all concerned. So the first thing you're going to do is remove yourself from the situation so that you can have the space to evaluate and see clearly. When we're hurt, whether we acknowledge it or not, the only way forward is forgiveness. If we lock into judgment, validation of our pain, or punishing the person, place, or situation, we are energetically courting to the very pain, tying ourselves to the pain we say we don't want to feel. It's a negative energy loop, and we can only cut or dissolve it with love or forgiveness. And that starts with us.
Awesome. So good. So you talked about something you mentioned. You talked about the disabling thoughts that keep us bound. So I believe my understanding of disabling thoughts is the thinking that holds you captive. They make you unable to progress in any form. I was talking with someone and I told her that the thing about this abuse, domestic violence, is that most of the stories that I know, they are not violently abusive. They don't beat them all the time and lock them in a room. It's in their mind. It's mind, emotional abuse. And actually, there's been research that shows that emotional abuse is the most common form of abuse. However, it is the one that has the least attention paid to it, because there's no proof.
Yeah, there's no
it. There's no physical proof.
Well, there actually is physical proof.
Okay.
When everything that we do, everything that we say, every action that we take has a mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual impact. And that shows on our body. So our shoulders will be slumped.
Droop, yeah.
We will lean in or away.
Yes.
We will use body language that covers our body.
Yes, protecting.
And we will not express what we're feeling. And when we don't express what we're feeling from a place of calm and coherence, that energy gets stuck in our body. It creates dis-ease, which creates disease, which
Yeah.
energetically expresses itself with migraines or fibromyalgia or a backache or a stomach ache or poor digestion, you name it. It's going to show up physically one way or another in our manner, in our mind. And, it's not necessary to condone the action that has brought us the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual pain. We can choose to take action from a place of peace and calm. So the first thing to learn is, what is calm for me? How can I access calm? When we are in a place of mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional abuse, we're in chaos or incoherence. That's coming from the mind ego map, which is very physical and very mental. When we're in calm and coherence, we're coming from the heart based soul map. That's calm and coherence. So I say, first thing I ask myself when I'm in a situation where I'm in judgment is, okay, I'm in my mind here. I'm feeling chaos and incoherence in my field. What am I evaluating? All evaluation is judgment. All judgment can only lead to problems for yourself, for the situation, for others. If you're judging a person, place, or thing, you're only creating more chaos. And chaos is ego-based. And when something is ego-based, you compromise your ability to clear it through your heart. And the cycle repeats. And it always creates a like cycle, another cycle that are based in guilt, blame, shame, or fear.
Awesome. So I love that all evaluation is judgment, and all judgment eventually leads to chaos. So when we are in these spaces, these situations, you could ask someone, you should not judge. No, I'm not judging. I'm only evaluating the situation. We give that excuse that we're just trying to evaluate, but actually we are judging. We're taking sides. We're moving this to that side. We're agreeing with that. We're disagreeing with this. And that is it. And when I said that, emotional is not physical. If I went to the police won't do anything about my emotional abuse. People want to see you bleeding with a swollen head or something to actually give attention to this. But this is the challenge that many people in these situations face. So you are in a cage, a mental cage. You are not in a physical cage. They didn't lock the door on you. You're able to go out and come in, but yet you're staying in this thing that is so not good for you. I just want to take you back again to when you left your 23-year-old relationship. How did you get to the point? Because you waited for that long. And like you said, you said it was 10 years over the time you should have spent. But something kept you there. And one thing that I learned when you spoke and when you said about the first one, you didn't discuss with anybody. You just said, you know what, I ain't gonna stay here. You were young. You I think you had more self-confidence or something at that age. So you knew what you didn't want and you took action. But in the second case, you didn't take action like you did the first time. So can you maybe tell us what happened to make you take action when you eventually did? You waited that long before you eventually left. Something kept you there. What was it? And what eventually helped you to take the decision to move forward when you did? What were the things that led you to seek for help? And what help did you get?
I had decided to stay in the marriage. My husband had been unfaithful more than once, and I had forgiven him more than once. And we were living overseas in a foreign country as a visible minority and in a Muslim country, predominantly Muslim country. And I was very financially secure. I had two beautiful preteen, one teenager and one preteen child at the time. And my life wasn't broken my marriage was. I loved my life. I loved where I was living. I loved my community. I was very engaged in teaching and in theater, and I was doing a lot of creative stuff. My life was rich and juicy, and I loved my husband. I just wasn't in love with him anymore. And we had the kind of life that many people would envy. And it felt somehow like a betrayal of my own to not try to work on it. And we did work on it. It just never worked. And eventually he would, stray again or stray in that direction. And I always just looked the other way. And I didn't realize in the moment, although I felt it and I knew it, I refused to acknowledge to myself that what was happening was eating away at me and turning me into a person that I didn't want to be. And to be totally bluntly honest, in the end, I was unfaithful to him as well. And that didn't hurt him a bit. It nearly killed me. And in fact, I told him at one point, he didn't believe me until years later. And then he got really, really angry. And I thought that was kind of hysterically funny at the time because, I told you the truth and you didn't believe me and you just went on your own way. So, there you go, male ego. Then later on, he betrayed me again, but this time with my very best friend. And I found then that, you know what? I wasn't angry at him and I wasn't surprised at him. And he no longer had the power to hurt me. I was way past him ever being able to hurt me again. And there was a part of me that still loved him very much. The good things that were good in him, because I always try to look for the good. But there was a part of me, it wasn't him that hurt me. It was my best friend that hurt me. I could see him doing what he did. I could never have imagined her doing what she did. And it just spiraled through our family in so many negative ways. And in reality, we were all culpable. This is what radical forgiveness is. It's looking at the situation and seeing that you were a part of the problem, right? That there were things within you that you brought forward that allowed this to happen, not to you, but with you. And I had to step back, and it was really hard. I was, to be quite frank, suicidal. I went into a massive black, deep depression. I got out of the marriage. I, carried on with my business. I kept my children together and got them through it. And ultimately, in the end, it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings of my life, because in those years, the 5 years that followed that between, like 45 and 50, I really learned the power of forgiveness, the power of love, the power of unity. I was able to come full circle. My dear friend who ended up marrying my ex-husband died 3 years later of breast cancer that went to her brain. And I was able to reconnect with her, help him, be there for her children and my children through it. And we were able to forgive each other and to find peace. And, I am remarried and very happy. My ex-husband is remarried and living in Thailand and very happy. We have 2 beautiful adult children that have given us glorious grandchildren. And he is the best dad he knows how to be. Unfortunately, he's far away, so he can't mess around too much with what's going on. He comes, he visits his children, he supports them beautifully in every way that he can, except being physically present in their life. He's not very much that. And then when I married Frank, this man is the epitome of family. He's the epitome of what it's like. And, my children have a father, but they have also a father friend. and with him. And, when they need advice or guidance, the first person they turn to is Frank, because, they see the integrity and the love and the lack of judgment. And also this stoic, all-encompassing life goes on, and we go on with it, and we choose how to respond, right?
Yeah.
You asked me earlier about the mental construction of abuse. The emotional construction of abuse is a jail, is a prison. We're slamming the bars around ourselves and saying, I'm not worthy of getting out of this jail. It's a mental and an emotional construction. We have to break those chains. If your children, if somebody slammed a jail around your child for no reason, you'd get a crowbar, you'd get a hacksaw, you'd break that sucker down. Yes. So why would you not do that for yourself, right?
It's wonderful, because this issue of the jail is a big, big challenge. And this jail is not just the jail of the one being jailed. For you to put someone in jail, you're in jail too.
Yes. Yeah.
The abuser is in jail too. Yeah. Because life can be so good. Life is wonderful. Love makes the world richer, sweeter, relationships more intimate. And there's lots of prosperity in love. I don't know why people will marry someone and be emotionally distant, because when you describe the second husband you have, I know someone like that. And that's being emotionally disconnected from the person you covenanted to love and share life with. It makes no sense to me. I keep wondering, when we pass on to the other side, what would we have done with our time here? Why are you keeping back this part of yourself? Who are you giving it to? If you can't give it to your wife, to your person, the person you covenanted, no one put a gun to your head, you chose it. So I just want to know, because you left, you loved the life you had, but you could no longer continue to bear the pain that you thought you didn't feel. But there were the steps you took towards healing that makes you now able to help other women heal. What were those things that helped you find yourself? Because you said you now came to terms with who you were and accepted yourself. And now you're living in the fullness of all that you are. So how did you move from this place of where you pushed down the pain and you weren't feeling it, you tried not to feel it, to this place of totally, completely living a life that is enviable?
Well, I'd like to say that it was a snap and I did it overnight, but I didn't. I spent, the good thing was that I've always been a learner, and I've always gravitated towards spiritual teachings that aligned with the way I felt and expressed and experienced energy. Even when I was in the closet, as a medium and a psychic and an empath, I felt all these things and I saw all these things. And I started to seek out the people that were like me, that were considered to be masters, and to literally sit and learn at their feet. And I mean, my teachers were Wayne Dyer, Sonia Choquette, Sylvia Brown, Dan Millman, you name it. I've taken over 78 spiritual courses of education and enlightenment, and to come full circle and to find that everything that was within them that was masterful and mastery was within me. And the reason that I was attracted to them is they shone a light that was like mine. So I would say to anyone that wants to change their life, seek the light that you are, the light that you see in someone that you would consider to be a teacher or a mentor or a sage or an enlightened being. You're attracted to that specific sphere of energy because that is the energy that is in you. So learn about it, seek it out, educate yourself. And everything is online nowadays. Whatever spiritual, mental, or emotional, physical teaching you want, it's on YouTube. Go find it. I'm on YouTube. You're on YouTube. We can do this. So, remember that we're infinite souls. We're born of love to express love, and we return to infinite love. Judgment is just that, chaos. The more you judge, the more incoherence you create. Forgiveness always results in calm and coherence, and it's heart-based. Do everything from your heart. Do you need to think about it? Of course you need to think about it. But when you make a choice about an action, put it in your heart and take time to sit with it. Whenever I feel that I'm going to make a snap decision, I snap my mouth shut and I open my heart up and I feel it. What does it feel like to me? Sometimes it feels like I need to remove myself from the situation so I can feel into it more. Sometimes it feels I need to confront it head on and deal with what I'm avoiding or what I'm feeling the pain is about. If I'm unsure, boy, that first thing I told you, remember, we're infinite love, that's number one. Like, there are 9 keys for radical forgiveness and living a life in calm and coherence. Forgiveness is always heart-based. When you label something good, bad, or indifferent, or anything else, you negate it. It just is. Now, you created or agreed to be a part of this experience to learn from it. Ask yourself, what am I learning in this moment? What is the teaching that I need to hear and feel and be living from here? You can forgive someone or a thing or a situation without forgetting the lesson that you learned from it. Staying stuck in a memory is not a good place to be. It's an inside job. It starts in your heart and it's a choice. The most important thing, forget the drama. We're drama queens and kings, and all discord and discordant communication comes from drama. So if there's drama going on, get rid of it. Just go back to calm and say, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this right now. And exit the situation until you can be non-dramatic, right? All judgment comes with drama, from drama, right? Get still, get centered, get grounded, get focused, feel calm, and then act from there.
Awesome.
When you forgive, it's like, crack cocaine for an addict. Forgiveness releases endorphins in your bodies that allow us to free the ego. It's adrenaline for the heart. And when we do that, we automatically are given the emotions, whether we acknowledge or recognize them or not, of hope, joy, love, grace, and freedom. The greatest of which is grace. And the reason I say that is, people say, I can't love that person, place, or situation. And you can't. In the moment when you're in pain and you're not leaning into forgiveness, you can't feel those things. That's when grace comes in. Hope that you can do better. Hope is the railway train that grace rides in on. Right? And grace stops at the station of love. And if you can't feel love, grace just goes, okay, chugga, 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 and on we go down the track until you can feel it again. But you can be in a state of grace from a place of grace without feeling the love for someone or something that has hurt you. And it's hard to let the judgment go because judgment grounds you. We're born to fly. Yeah. We're born to fly. Our energy is all over the world the same time we're in this place. And everything that ever was and everything that ever will be is all a part of who we are right now. And as such, we are magnificent beings of light. And we came to this planet to be light and to be love and to experience it through the experience of being human. And being human means that things are going to happen.
Yep.
It's the human experience. Mm-hmm. As souls, we came here to grow our souls through the experience of humanity.
From near blindness, polio, cancer, 3 near-death experiences, bankruptcy, multiple career and home transitions, and 2 failed marriages. Donna has shared her wisdom. She says those are all for growing her soul in the human experience. So if you are going through a tough time, it's growing you. If you are going through a tough time, it is growing you. And when we experience these hurts and pains, and we graciously forgive, we will live in the true essence of why we're here. As Donna says, we're born to fly. I invite you, let us all join Donna and become radical forgivers and see as our lives soar. And as we become radical forgivers, like I always say, mercy won't stop us. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.